We were talking earlier about hope, and one of the things that I brought up is, what do you do when you don't have hope? I feel like Psalm 91 is a really great place to go when you are waiting on that hope to actually spring up in your heart for it to catch up to you. So I wanted to go back over that for you because it's been one that's really helped me. And in Psalm 91, there's some key points in here. He says, He himself, God, will rescue you from the trap, from the destructive plague. He will cover you with his feathers. You will take refuge under his wings, and his faithfulness will be a protective shield. I think that that psalm really speaks to a lot of people when they're lacking hope, and it's just a great reminder of coming under his protection while we await getting out of that what feels like a desert or a dry place or just a really rough season. One thing that I think is super important to know is in that whole passage, it says that if we call on him, that he will answer. And a lot of times when we're feeling hopeless, we can forget that we have a daddy in heaven that is waiting on us to just call on him. And he says that his response is twofold, that he's going to listen, he hears us, and that when he does, he's going to dispatch his angels to help us in our time of need. Yeah, I think a lot of times, if we go back to God's pattern of faithfulness and trustworthiness, then I believe it helps us get to that place of hope a lot quicker. And I think that's why it's super important that if we don't have our own testimonies to reflect back on, to have those of others, and then also in the scriptures so that we can grab hold of that hope. Because there are definitely times when it's just really hard, but to say, okay, I fully trust you, God, and put my hope in you when it comes to this circumstance. But if we can go back and look at his pattern of faithfulness, then we can truly have that hope spring forth a lot quicker. And I think if we stay isolated or away from his word, because, in the isolation, you don't have anyone to remind you or to encourage you what he's done in the past for them or for others. And if we don't get in the word and see this consistent, despite our disobedience and craziness and acting out of our feelings, we see this consistent God who's just always chasing after us with love and goodness. And if we can just remember those two things, to stay in community with others who can help to fan the flame for us when we need it, or stand in the gap for us and stay in the scriptures, then the hope is easier to come by. But when we don't have either of those, it's
hard.
It's lonely, it's hard, it feels overwhelming, it draws up feelings of anxiousness, because all you're relying on is what you're feeling. So I just want you to take hope in this passage and in this scripture, that when you're going through a hard time, or someone else that is, to just reflect on the words that he says here. And don't forget that our part is simple. We don't have to figure it out. All we have to do is just remember to call on him. And when we do, he hears you. And you can rest assured, based on the pattern of his faithfulness and everything that he has done in the lives of others and for yourself, that he is going to answer and your hope will be restored.